Humans of the cardboard, we've got to go more in depth on Duality, the new quick play spell card revealed about a week ago for the OCG, a set in the OCG. We'll get this imported somewhere. It got released right alongside Shadow's Light. We talked about Shadow's Light more in depth and a bunch of targets that apply to it. So now we're going to go ahead and look at Duality and some of the best targets that I think apply to this card specifically. So let's get into it. We'll start by reading the card here. Again, it's called Duality. It's a quick play spell card. You can use each of its effects once per turn, which is pretty nice. I'm glad they didn't make it like one effect only once per turn. The first effect reads, tribute one light or dark monster as cost. Special summon a light or dark monster with the same original type and level, but different original attribute from your hand or extra deck. So this was a key distinction here, the difference between Shadow's Light. Shadow's Light can summon a light monster from deck or extra deck. This card is hand or extra deck, so you lose a ton of main deck targets just because you have to have that card in hand if you want to be able to resolve this. Otherwise, most of the more prevalent targets are going to be in the extra deck, specifically fusions and synchros, because it has to have the same exact level and type as the monster, where Exceeds don't have levels, Links don't have levels, stuff like that. The second effect says, during your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to target a light and a dark monster in your graveyard. Shuffle them both into the deck, then draw one card. That's also really good, especially since this card cheats out extra deck monsters. So maybe you're shuffling back an extra deck monster, reset that, or main deck pieces while also getting a draw. So whatever it is, even if you want to argue like, oh, you're giving up a body on field and this card in hand to get out one monster, like, oh, it's a neg one. The draw kind of makes up for that, and ideally what you'd be summoning would either be a worthwhile end board piece or a card that's going to get you more advantage anyway, so it would make up for it at the end of the day, hopefully. And the last thing to mention that, I mentioned, but be more specific about, it's a quick play, and I think that's the biggest utility here. Worst case scenario, even if this isn't helping you do your combo, if you end on a monster that has the right stats for this card, you can still just set it, and then, once you've fired a negate from like a 1 negate monster, you tribute that monster and get another one out, and maybe that's another interruption on top of it. There. So that's just, I guess, another utility for this card, as well as just being like a card that could potentially help you dodge interruption, extend turn 1. It does have that utility turn 2. So let's get into it. We've got a million targets to go through. We're going through mostly extra deck stuff. I feel like there's not much point talking about the main deck stuff because it has to be in hand specifically. But yeah, dragons have to lead us off here. We know how important dragons are here. Dragons are almost not exclusively, but damn well near exclusively like a chaos theme. It's a ton of light and dark stuff, so it makes a ton of sense. You'll see a lot of levels and attributes that'll match up for these guys. Starting off with Black Rose Moonlight, when this card special summon, you get to just target a special summon monster your opponent controls, bounce it to the hand. That's pretty solid, especially if you're using this as like a quick effect on the opponent's turn. Nice. Albaz, the Abyss Dragon. You'll see some of these branded fusions as well on here. This guy's cool because, like, whether you're making him and tributing him to get out another one or summoning him to be offensive, like in the battle phase or something, he is, when he's sent to graveyard, going to be adding you a polymerization or a fusion card on the end phase, which is pretty cool. So I like that follow-up potential. Borlode Furious Dragon just becoming essentially just a Trident that also offers you a little bit of potential follow-up in the graveyard later on. That's pretty nice. Dragon Maid Shao. This one's weird because it is, level 10. Kind of a weird level. You got to tribute a dark level 10 dragon. Not impossible, but not super common. But it is just a negate. You would have to play a House Dragon Maid in the extra as well, I believe, to make use of this card. But an Omni Negate's an Omni Negate. So, it is what it is. Hot Red Dragon Archfiend again, Abyss. Again, another weird one. It's a level 9 dark, so you'd have to tribute a level 9 light. I'm not going to go through like how many of these cards actually have good tribute targets, by the way, because I think what's important to note is Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so open-ended. We get so many new cards every year. All it takes is one like perfect theme, perfect, combo sequence, perfect card, just one card, and any of these could become like really good targets immediately. So, yeah, Archfiend Abyss just being able to negate any one thing. Same with Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, and this kicks off our Spellcaster sequence here. Dragoon, you won't get the pop effect off of it, but it's annoying to deal with, and it is a negate. But, it's solid. for sure. Millennium Eyes restrict, the good as well. El Shadal Wind, kind of more of a weird level. You need a light level 5 spellcaster. Kind of weird, but it's Winda. It can just win games. This is the other new Albaz Fusion coming in, Photon Hypernova. He's cool, and he has like value in the graveyard as well. I think he's like an interruption that also offers you value in grave. Witchcrafter Vice Madame. This one's a pretty interesting one. A level 8 light spellcaster will get you into this, which is not the hardest thing in the world, I believe. And this is like, Witchcrafters just make this card. That's the strategy now for the deck. So maybe having another option to be able to just get you into this card, if you can put a level 8 spellcaster that's light on the field, we could take that. That could actually not be too shabby, all things considered. And then we get to the machines. Dawn Dragster, level 7 Dark Machine. Okay, that could work. Chimeratech Rampage. This one's cool because like you could just tribute Cyber Dragon and get out Rampage, and then Rampage on summon. Or I'm sorry, it doesn't pop on summon, but then you'd be able to like send the 2 light machines, get extra attacks, you know, still do some damage with it. Invoke Macaba. It'd need a level 9 Dark Machine, so I wouldn't expect it to be made that easy, but it is a negate. Negates are negates. Fiends. Siegfried. Fiends are weird because all Fiends are almost all dark, but you know, if we do get an archetype that's like light Fiends left and right, that does open up a lot of potential here. And plus, he's just a generic like negate, right? Well, let me see. During either player's turn, target a face-up spell or trap card on the field. That target has it as oh yeah. So it's just a spell or trap negate, like generically. So cool. Dark Baltar. This one's a really funny one because it's an old Fiend monster, but you would need a light level 5 Fiend, so it'd take a weird one. But when a normal spell is activated, negate the effects paying 1,000 life points. You know, if you play a strategy that's heavy on normal spells, this card is pretty threatening. It's not even once per turn, so that could be funny. Tearlament's Collido Heart. This one just says on special summon, like target a card and shuffle it back into the deck. So that works. And oddly enough, this is one of the few non-Aqua monsters. You could technically put Kick Callus on this list as well, but you need a light level 5 Aqua monster. Go ahead and let me know when Konami makes one of those. That's like playable in any way. But yeah, Collido Heart's really cool. That, if it ever comes up, that could be a pretty interesting one. The new Grapha Fusion. This card's just a monster negate that makes you discard a card, which is pretty cool. So if you can cheat this one out. But again, high level, you need a light Fiend. A little bit awkward. And then we get to plants. Plants, again, like you might see some dark plants here or there, but you don't usually see light plants. Normally they're like earth or like randomly water at times. But yeah, it is what it is. I might as well mention them. Ambulomelids is pretty interesting because this card just gets you so much value when it's summoned. So just cheating it out can just, like, we see the deck play instant fusion, and then this card like lets you go crazy with an instant fusion. So that's cool. Dragostapelia, just getting the negate. And then Garden Rose Maiden, like, searches you Black Rose Garden or Black Garden on summon, and then can like help you like get back a Dragon Synchro from grave later on. So interesting card, but again, it's plants. Fairies. Fairies are another one that's kind of like Fiend, but the opposite. There's too many light fairies, not a ton of dark fairies. But still, if you can get Herald of Arclight out, that's cool. Dustbian Quaritas, pretty cool, because he's actually light, so you could tribute a dark... or actually, he's a Fiend. That's my fault. He should have been with the Fiends. But if you tribute a dark level 8 Fiend, you can get to the light Fiend of Quaritas. He's really annoying to deal with. He floats. He gets you into... he makes all your opponent's monsters like really small. It's pretty cool. Invoked Ogoides. When he's special summon, you can just target a monster your opponent controls and destroy it. So that's pretty cool. Just kind of same thing as kind of like Black Rose Moonlight kind of, but a level 8 light fairy. Skeletal Dragon Falgren. This one's one of the more interesting ones. I mentioned this one in the Shadows Light video, but the cool thing here is it's a quick effect. So his whole thing is on special summon, he targets a monster your opponent controls or in their grave and banishes it. So if you had Ballardrock on your field, you'd be able to like negate some stuff with Ballardrock, or if your opponent does something that like threatens to remove him from the field, you could chain Duality, tributing Ballardrock to just summon Felgrand out on the opponent's turn because it's weirdly enough light, and then you'd be able to banish another card on top of that. That's pretty cool value. in those specific types of scenarios. Destiny Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix, Enforcer. There weren't a ton of great warrior targets here. Enforcer's interesting. Keep in mind you're cheating him out, so he won't be able to summon himself back from grave if he ever hits grave from destruction, and you're also not getting the materials in grave to like draw 2 on a later turn. But to be able to like just pop a different card you control and a card your opponent controls every turn, non-targeting, still has its value. It could still come up at some point. Rex turn, pretty funny. I mean, we'd need a level 8 light dinosaur that's worth it, but if it ever comes out, this guy is pretty cool and pretty threatening by himself. Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, another cool card, but again, worms are weird. But worms aren't impossible. They're just kind of like hand-me-down dragons. So maybe down the line we will get more developed Tenyi support, whatever, and maybe there's a light that kind of is the other side of Draco Berserker, which could be pretty cool. And then Mirror Jade is the last one there. Again, another worm. Would take a level 8 light worm to make it work, you know, whenever we get that. But yeah, all things considered, it's a really interesting card. And I think it's one of those things where, like, we're probably just going to have to wait until we get, like, the perfect archetype. I think there are some interesting interactions right now, but I really do feel like its utility is just too random, not consistent enough with any strategies that exist right now. You'd have to build too much around this card, making your deck worse because you're focusing too much on that and not just trying to build a good deck. But I do think there will be one day where we get, like, a random chaos deck where it's, like, lights and darks in the main, and then the extra has, like a level 4 lighter dark fusion, or, you know, something like that like really gets your engine going when it's kind of like a Kit Kalos, but just for that archetype. And that way, you know, once you have the light on the field and your opponent threatens it or whatever, you can duality, chain duality, protect your monster, cheat out the fusion, and then the fusion gets you a ton of value and you're just able to pop off like crazy. I could see some kind of random archetype like that come out at some point just out of nowhere, and then this card's able to capitalize on it. But these are most of the just more generic options for it. Again, if it's summoned from deck, this card would actually be pretty interesting in stuff like Dragon Link or a cool Spellcaster deck. But unfortunately, it's only hand or extra, so we're making the best of what we can there, because unfortunately, the best situations I can think of to use this card would be like immediately early in the turn, almost as a starter, where, okay, I normal summon a Luber, my opponent does something, and I'd want to summon a Light Fairy from somewhere, but because we can only summon from extra, you're pretty much locked into like Arclight, but then Arclight like really hurts Despia, Despia Fusion, or Branded Fusion, so it's hit or miss. There's some cool applications. Hopefully it comes up somewhere. If I missed anything, guys, please let me know in the comment section down below if there's any interesting targets that you think actually could make use of this card, and maybe some decks that could play this card right now. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that in case I missed anything. I went down the list, man. I really didn't think I missed much, but I'd love to hear your thoughts just in case you think I did. But I'm out of here for today. Sorry about the rambling. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.